The 76ers finally clicking at 2 big wins. We're going to break it all down on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Keith Pompey, Kayla Santiago, of course, Keith Pompey, Sixers beat writer, Kayla Santiago here, sideline reporter for the NBA G League team in the Blue Coats, which is the affiliate of the Philadelphia 76ers. You can watch us on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. In addition, though, you can also check out our free daily newsletter. That's on lockedondaily.com. Make sure you go check that out today. And from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs and some of the biggest games even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you want to win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the Philadelphia 76ers, we alluded to them finally clicking. We'll talk about that throughout this podcast. Also, some Paul George updates, everything in between. Looking at the big fella as well and some other injuries and how that shapes them up going against the Lakers coming up. I thought they were finally clicking, and Paul George had a huge game against the Cavs, and then another injury happens in that Bulls game to Paul George. But Keith, you look at these two games, they've already happened a few days ago. How did the 76ers build off this momentum?
You know what? It's weird. So that's a tough question to answer because, they did beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, which was a good win, right? I give them credit for that. Cleveland was banged up. The Sixers were banged up. Mm-hmm. I was in Chicago for that Chicago game, and it was horrible basketball, by the Bulls, right?
Right.
To be honest with you, the fact that Paul George is hurt now, I think that took a lot of air out of these wins. I mean, it does because, it's to a point where he's not going to play Tuesday night against LA, the Lakers. So as much as you say, okay, they're starting to click, they're starting to do everything, now you're going up against LeBron James, Anthony Davis, without Paul George, and all you have is Tyrese Maxey. And we're talking about, I know it sounds good, but at the same time, you got the Lakers, then you got the Sacramento Kings, then you have the Denver Nuggets coming in. Whew. I don't think they got the lift that everybody thought they did. I think more so what's happening is you have the fans upset that they're winning games, the fans who are paying attention because everybody else is all about the Eagles. I feel like right now they're a little upset that they got the win because they want them to lose games as opposed to winning.
Keith, it's so interesting because, right, and we had this conversation the other day, and you said, listen, the 76ers, they can tank if they want to, but they're not going to be the worst team in the NBA, and they're not going to get that number one overall pick because there's other teams looking at the Washington Wizards and other squads that are probably looking for that number one spot right now. So the 76ers, I think they start to realize that a little bit, and they say, all right, well, we got to go out there and win some games to have some momentum, and then all of a sudden, Paul George gets hurt and that momentum is completely wiped away. I mean, the 76ers cannot get a break with injuries. You look at it and you say, okay, Paul George, not the best first half against the Cavs. That second half completely blows it open. You look forward to what he can do, build on that, and then all of a sudden, an injury coming in for him as well. In addition to that, it's also what we've been talking about all season long, and Joel Embiid missing 11 straight games, and this team going in this schedule continues now to have no consistency. So some fans excited about the win saying, okay, some fans saying, well, what about tanking? But at the end of the day, I mean, Keith, this team cannot stay healthy, and that doesn't bode well for them going forward, especially in this schedule, looking at the next 3 to 5 games.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the thing about it is, guys like KJ Martin, Caleb Martin are expected to return shortly. They're practicing and doing everything like that. But you're right. I mean, it's just a team that, hasn't been able to have consistency. And let's face it, the thing is, the one thing about NBA games, and when you have a team, and granted, the Sixers did get the win, but in all my years of covering the league, I remember there's been teams that were in first place when the Sixers were struggling, and they would come into the Wells Fargo Center, especially if the Sixers were undermanned and struggling. And I'm like saying, oh, they're going to get boat raced. Like they're going to get dog walked. They're going to just get destroyed. And the other team kind of was like on cruise control. They allowed the crowd to get into it, momentum. They rested players, and
Right.
what that does is that's the ingredient of a upset, right? So when we talk about that, and then you look at it and you see how the Sixers won the next one, then you say, okay, that's cool. But you're right, and like we talked about, they don't they just don't have the momentum. Now, the one thing that I will say, the thing that has been impressive by the 76ers overall is Eric Gordon has regained his shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something
Yeah.
to build upon. Okay, Justin Edwards, is he's playing enough games now that you can say that okay, this guy is pretty good, in his role, as opposed to playing, a small sample size and like, okay, is he just had a good week? So he's showing that he can play. So to me, they have been bright spots. Another bright spot is they've been Tyrese Maxey, he was getting his buckets in the fourth quarter, but
Right.
lately he's been incorporating other people. So they have to continue that up to be successful. So to me, like, I don't think that they're going to beat the Lakers. I don't think that they're going to beat Sacramento. I don't think they're going to beat Denver. I don't, right? However, I do look at it like if we're going to see some positives, it's been the emergence of Eric Gordon, it's been Justin Edwards, and it's been the balance that the 76ers shown the last two games.
It's so interesting you bring up Justin Edwards too, because after that Cavs game, I kind of called him the unsung hero. Hits a three down the stretch late, has 15 points coming off the bench. That's kind of some production you were looking at off the bench as well. And both of us kind of talked about who needs to step up. And I'm not saying that Justin Edwards is going to be any type of difference maker in the grand scheme of things against the schedule for the Philadelphia 76ers, but he has stepped up as well. You look at these other players, and these are the conversations that we're having about who consistently plays. It's a lot of the guys that are on two ways. We saw Ricky Council just get assigned to the Delaware Bluecoats. He had a big game down there, and I think Nick Nurse doing that, just trying to get him some playing time, some minutes, because he hasn't with the Philadelphia 76ers. But the injuries just have really, really hurt this team going forward. And I look at the Sixers schedule, and this is not something you want to look at with no Paul George, and we don't know the stats of Joel Embiid at the moment. You have the Lakers, who have been playing really well as of late too. They just took down the Celtics not that long ago, 117-96. But we'll dive into the Lakers a little bit later on in the show. Then the Kings, as you alluded to, the Nuggets, the Celtics, the Mavs, the Heat. Maybe you can sneak it a win there at home, depending on who's back. The Pistons, that's on the road in Detroit, and there's no win that you can hand yourself. Then the Bucks, it just keeps going on and on. So, Keith, when I think you look ahead and when you build upon what the Sixers team was able to create in these last two games, that kind of all dwindles down now. And I hate to say that. And I know fans are going to be upset about that. But now that Paul George is injured once again, there goes your momentum. And all of a sudden, it goes right back down. This team can't catch a break.
Yeah, but the thing is with the momentum, that the one thing, like, I mean, and again, like I said, the things you build off of, you beat a team that was really good in first place, knowing that they boat raced y'all twice before,
Mm-hmm.
or the second time. Like they handed the Sixers their worst loss when they were in Cleveland. And then you come in, and now mind you, they've been struggling a little bit too, Cleveland. But you come in here and it's kind of sort of like, no Joel Embiid, no this person, no Drummond. Oh man, it's going to be easy. Voila. And then whatchamacallit. So yeah, it's kind of like we'll figure. I don't think the Sixers got a chance in a lot of these games coming up, like in
No.
the near
Mm-mm.
future. They don't. They don't have that. Now, the one thing I will say about the Ricky Council thing is this time of year, you keep your like, and I'm not saying the Sixers are doing this, but typically when you look at Ricky Council, he's a guy who's an energy guy who's not getting a lot of minutes. And then all of a sudden he goes down to the G League.
Right.
And when they go down to the G League, sometimes you look at it like, okay, are they sending them down to the G League because they want to get him some run, or are they sending him down to the G League because they want to showcase him a little bit in in case of a possible trade? You tend to think about
Mm.
that a lot when the trade deadline is about to approach, right? And I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but it happens quite a bit because with Paul George being out, who do you think the next man up is? It's going to be Ricky Council. So he's going to get some run on Tuesday and on Wednesday, right? So to me, those are the certain things you got to look out for when you see that, right? Now, again, they're going to say we wanted to give him some run, but I don't know. It's kind of close to the trade deadline. You know what I mean? It's kind of close.
I want to talk about that point in the next segment too, really quick. And we're going to get to Paul George and the Lakers matchup, but I want to get your thoughts on 76ers prospects and players that they have that maybe they gave away a little bit too early, because you bring that up. Ricky Council comes in that conversation if the 76ers are looking for a trade. I don't think at this point you want to get rid of Justin Edwards, but the 76ers have done things like that in the past. So we're going to talk on that in just a moment as well, in addition to Paul George and everything in between, and how this season is going to continue to look for the Philadelphia 76ers in just a moment. But first, we do have to tell you about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 and $5 in bonus bets at visit FanDuel.com today. So we have to talk about the big game. A team from Philadelphia, of course, in it after a very convincing NFC Conference Championship win against the Commanders. On the other side, the Chiefs coming out on top against the Buffalo Bills. It's Andy Reid coming back, facing his former team. Travis Kelce, of course, on the side. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts back at it again against Patrick Mahomes. But it is going to be the Chiefs by a very slim margin. That tells you all how close this big game might be at -1.5. If you want to lock that in right now, if you think this game's going to come down to the wire, be extremely close, make sure you head over to FanDuel right now. -1.5 right now is the spread between this game. And if you want to lock that in, odds can change throughout the week, throughout the next 2 weeks, really, before the big game comes about. So make sure you go check it out today. That's America's #1 sportsbook. Be sure to visit FanDuel today to place all of your sports bets. There's no better place than FanDuel to do so. So make sure you go check it out today. All right. So, Keith, I want to go back to what we were talking to just a moment ago. And you bring up a really, really good point about, they're not going to say that they're putting Ricky Council down there to get him some flash and anything like that, and to see what he can do, especially at that level. But when trade deadlines come about, and I want to talk about this because there's been some players that I look at right now, and Jaden Springer comes to mind immediately. And I know he wasn't developing a lot of an offensive game, and you look at players for the Sixers like a Matisse Thybulle and a Ben Simmons, and you say, okay, is it worth keeping a player like that on the team that is more defensive based? He's getting some run now with the Boston Celtics. When you look at these guys like a Ricky Council, a Justin Edwards, a Jeff Doughton, who do you think might be on this team a little bit untouchable? And I'm not talking about the big stars. We know about all that, but guys that you really think in the next coming years, when this team might go to Tyrese Maxey, can be part of that developmental crew going forward. Is there anybody you look at that you say the 76ers shouldn't try to trade him away too quickly?
They don't have any untouchables anymore. I mean, I guess Tyrese Maxey might be the closest thing to one, they're going to say, but at this particular point, when you're, what are they, 17 and 20 and 27,
Yeah.
they don't have any untouchables. I mean, right now this team has struggled. I think what they have is they have on this roster, they have a couple guys like Joel Embiid, like, someone may, if he has a lot of, milestones he has to reach or games that he has to play in order for his contract to be fully guaranteed, then maybe a team will take him. But if his thing is fully guaranteed, that might be a hard contract to unload. You right?
Yeah.
Paul George, it has to be the right situation to unload it, right? You know what I mean? Because He's about to be 35, and he missed what 15 games. It's going to be 15 games. So when you look at this roster, they don't have anybody. I think that you will say is untouchable. And I said Tyrese Maxey. They may say that, but believe me, if you can get Anthony Edwards for Tyrese Maxey, what you going to do?
I mean, I'm taking Anthony Edwards.
Exactly.
If I'm going to be honest,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, if Joel Embiid was in his prime and he didn't have any injuries, then you look at him. So no, they don't have anyone. But the guys who you look at it who are possible trade candidates, guys who could, like, a team may want, is Yabusele.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one.
Huge, right.
Another one would be Kelly Oubre,
Mm-hmm.
and the third one would be probably Caleb Martin, because these are all guys who have, Yabu, you're basically going to get him and you're going to see how he fits in on the team. And then you decide if you want to bring him back. These other two guys, like, they're the type, they got nice tradable contracts, but they're also guys who play well with other stars. You know what I'm saying? So to me, those are the three. Now, when we talk about Justin Edwards, he's already on a two-way.
Yeah.
So do you want to invest? Like, do you want, like, I like it, that when we're talking two ways, I just feel like it's different. You know what I mean? I just do, unless you become the man. So I don't see teams like knocking down the Sixers' door for them. And now the one thing I will say about the guy that they traded last year to the Boston Celtics, what's my man's name?
Jaden Springer.
Yeah, Jaden Springer.
Jaden Springer, yeah.
The thing is, the Sixers really traded him because the Chicago Bulls wanted 2 second-round draft picks for Andre Drummond. So the Sixers trade him to Boston, and then the Chicago Bulls say, "Oh, we don't want to do that deal." So the Sixers basically got rid of this guy for draft picks that they didn't use in the trade that they were trying to make.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's really interesting because, the 76ers right now, they're in a really crazy spot. And, I don't think they're going to, even if they want to trade these guys, they're not going to get much in return. And is it really even worth it trading anybody, because you don't know the status of Joel Embiid, and your odds of making a big postseason push are kind of slim to none. Now, it would be a tough first round matchup no matter what if Joel Embiid is healthy and other guys are healthy too. But at the same time, it is an interesting topic because that is right around the corner here. And the 76ers, you never know what they're going to do. But before we get into the matchup that they have tomorrow night, I do want to talk on Paul George a little bit. So he left in the second quarter with a left finger injury after scoring 9 points. That's against the Bulls. And, he's not going to play tomorrow. But how is the team feeling around this, Keith? Anything that you've heard on your end? Because this has to be a complete Debbie Downer, I would think, kind of seeing their reactions a little bit and just looking at it like, wow, the 76ers finally get him to light things up against the Cavs. And then once again, he's out for the third time this season.
Yeah, I mean, the guys feel sorry for him. They do. They're all looking at it like, hey, here's a guy who he comes in, he plays well in the first preseason game that they had. And then all of a sudden he has the hyperextended knee. And then all of a sudden he tries to get his groove back. And then he has another hyperextended knee. So the way they're looking at it is like, you know what? There's a lot of, misfortune for him, right? Then, so that's how they're looking at it. But also, I think it's getting to a point where it's bigger than Paul too. It's kind of like, okay, Kyle went down. It went down. It's like more so like, man, we just can't get a break with anybody. That's what I think. I think how they're really looking at it. Like, I mean, I don't not think that's what they are. It's like whenever we take a step forward, we end up taking 3 steps backwards.
And every time I watch a Sixers game and we're analyzing these games, I think, what's going to be next? What's going to happen next? Is Tyrese Maxey going to be okay? Because it just really has been the story of the season. Now, granted, it's happening in the NBA in general. Injuries happen, but it just seems for the Philadelphia 76ers, they really can't catch a break. And they're not going to catch a break with this upcoming schedule, especially when we look at this Lakers game in a moment. Right now, while we're filming this, they are playing against the Charlotte Hornets. But we'll kind of take a look at what the Lakers have been able to do as of late and how the Philadelphia 76ers will match up against a very tough team in just a moment. All right. So this Lakers game, the 76ers, good luck. That's all I'm going to say. No Paul George. Lakers right now in fifth place as we speak in the Western Conference. But they have really been able to play in very big games and come out on top. You look at the Warriors game, they came out on top. The Celtics right before that. The Wizards as well. The Clippers, another tough game. They fell in that contest. They only defeat the Nets by 1. That was on January 17th. They defeat the Heat. They fall to the Spurs, so on and so forth. But, I mean, how do you look at this game, Keith? Because I look at it as the 76ers have no chance. And I did say that about the Cavs. So I understand where people might be like, well, where's your hope, Kayla? But at this point, I think the 76ers, they finally felt some type of chemistry. They got things going a little bit. They pick up a big win. That's another big blow. That does a lot to a team physically, in addition to mentally as well. And this Lakers team right now, they picked up some pretty big wins as of late.
Yeah, and I also look at it. I mean, with the Cavs, again, it was, a team that was basically overlooking them. I mean, didn't they lose? They had a 7-game losing streak the whole nine. I think that if you're the Lakers, when we're talking about a Lakers team that has been struggling as of late and they're trying to get stuff going, they're like chomping at the bits. Like, they're hoping that hurry up and get a blowout and then come to Philly and let's just impose our will, because they're trying to get everything ready, because they know after the All-Star break, that's when stuff really gets real. So I think that it's going to be a tough one for the Sixers. And, LeBron James is 40 years old. You have Anthony Davis, too. The thing about the Cavs had some young stars. I feel like when you have veteran or perennial all-stars like the Lakers do, they know the importance when it comes down to sense of urgency. And I'm looking at it at LeBron being 40, with him being 40. I don't see anyone on the Sixers team right now who can guard him. I don't. And he's 40.
No.
You know what I mean? So I don't see that. And then we talk about Anthony Davis. Who's going to guard him? So
nobody.
Yeah. So, and the guy Dorian Finney-Smith, who started a couple games recently for him, the guy that they traded for Brooklyn, his mother's from Camden. I'm looking at him like he would look great in the Sixers uniform. He really would. So I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. I don't see the Sixers getting this win.
I don't either. And, we consistently talk about the status of Joel Embiid, and it doesn't look like he's going to be back for this game at all. But even if he was, they're still not winning this game, because you bring Joel Embiid back that hasn't played in 11 straight games against Anthony Davis, who, by the way, as we're recording this right now, has 33 points and looking to have even more. LeBron James. I mean, I don't even know who you put on LeBron James at this point. Maybe Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, if he ends up playing, because Tyrese Maxey ain't going to be able to keep up with LeBron James. He's just too big in stature, and LeBron's going to have a field day against the Philadelphia 76ers. I think this is a really tough matchup when you look at it. And, you look at the Lakers too. They're trying to gain some consistency in that Western Conference, which is a little bit more competitive, or a lot more competitive, I should say, than the Eastern Conference. OKC, definitely the team to beat right now in the Western Conference. But you got the Nuggets, you got the Lakers, two teams that are really consistent that the Philadelphia 76ers are going to face as well. Keith, who do you want to see play in this game that has been sidelined, been injured? And clearly Paul George is not going to play. Joel Embiid, we don't know the status of right now. Do you think Kayla Martin and KJ Martin, I know we don't have enough right now to be able to say yes, definitely, but do you want to see the 76ers try to push them to come play in this game? Because either way, they're not coming out with a victory, but I think defensively, just getting some more guys out there needs to start happening for this team.
Yeah, I mean, you would love to see those guys play. I mean, the thing is, like KJ, it's for him. It will be good to come out and play, just to get some reps in there, because he hasn't played since December the 23rd. The thing about Caleb Martin, you also have to be careful just because, we're talking about a groin injury, right?
Right.
But neither one of them are going to play, right? They're not. And see, that's the problem. Like, you would love for them to play. The person who did see, this is a crazy thing. You look at the Sixers injury report, right? Yabu,
Hmm.
Gershon Yabusele is probable with knee swelling, right knee swelling. But
Right.
then you look at KJ Martin's going to be out, Caleb Martin's out, Drummond's out, Embiid and Paul George. So it's one of those things where, yeah, you would like for them to play, but I think the thing about Caleb, you have to be 100% sure with a groin sprain, because it's kind of like, if he tweaks it the wrong way, the next thing you know, my man really is going to be out for a while. So they have to be careful with these guys. They have to.
That they do. And, for the 76ers, there's really no point to rush back because you're in a weird situation where, once again, you still could eventually get in play in. And, we say the 76ers are kind of done. There's not enough time for them to get back. But it is crazy to have the conversation is there is enough time for them to possibly get into the postseason because they're not that far back. If we look at the Eastern Conference standings right now, and you see that they're in 11th place at 17-27. That's 2 games behind the Bulls, who they just beat. The Hawks do have 22 wins as well. So the 76ers team, I mean, they're depleted. It's a little bit rough. And for this schedule going forward, it's just really, really tough. Keith, before we send things off, what I want to ask you too is what do you want to see from the 76ers team going forward? And I know it's tough to give an answer to that because what do you build off of after what just happened in that last game with Paul George going down? But what do you want to kind of see this team going forward try to keep up with against the Lakers, the Nuggets, and everything in between?
Well, I want to see ball movement. I do. I mean, I felt like, that fourth quarter against Chicago. Now, again, it was Chicago. Tyrese Maxey had 7 points in the fourth quarter, but Kelly Oubre had 9, right? Eric Gordon knocked down a big 3. Eric Gordon had a pretty good game. I want to see balance. If I'm Nick Nurse, I want to see balance from him. But also the Bulls committed 11 turnovers in that fourth quarter too. So the Sixers got their hands on balls. So I want to see that. I want to see balance, and I want to see activity on the defensive end. I think that's the thing. Now, again, that may not lead to a victory, but I think that when you do stuff like that, you're trending in the right way. You know what I mean? So those are things that I would like to see from them.
And I think too, just, we alluded to this earlier. Oh, they're a bad team. It doesn't matter, about effort and anything like that. But in addition to that, I do want to see them just go out there and play and give that effort and come out there and try to have some confidence. And I know it can be tough, but you don't want the last thing you want to see is them go up against the Lakers knowing they're going to get defeated and saying, all right, well, we're just, we're going to let them run the floor and everything like that, which I understand is going to happen. But you got to play up to anything that you can. I mean, the Cavs game was a surprise. And I know the Cavaliers didn't have all of their players in there. 76ers didn't either. That was a surprise, I think, for both of us looking at that game, how they came out. It's really different with Paul George, but at the same time, that's what I'm looking for in that contest against the Lakers and beyond. Well, the 76ers, they have a tough schedule ahead of them tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. That will be at the Wells Fargo Center. The 76ers host the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James, Anthony Davis will be in town. And then the Sixers have a nice homestand after that. They take on the Kings at home, the Nuggets as well, the Celtics, the Mavs, the Heat. They don't go on the road until February 7th. So sometime at home to try to really continue to do well with the little things as they have a tough, depleted team at the moment. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we will see you guys next time.